Hello, everyone. Today we are talking about NieR Automata. Or as some people say, I say automata as an automobile, but they say automata as if it's automaton, which, regardless, I think it sounds dumb. Anyway, NieR Automata. Let's get into this. Wow. There is, I think, a lot I have to say about this game. Not only is it the sequel to one of my favorite games of the 7th generation, but it is also an amazing game on its own, and I've put way too many hours into this game, way more than I should have, and wow, it's so amazing because I thought, oh, okay, there's this cult classic Yoko Taro game, and we are not going to get a sequel to this ever. Cavia shut down, and the only reason this game actually exists is because young workers or executives at Square Enix love the original NieR so much that they wanted to make a sequel to it, and I'm glad they did, and I'm sure Square Enix is glad they did, because 2B has now become the kind of, I don't know, almost not trademark, but certainly model of their company or something of the sort. She's appeared in so many different crossovers and different things, and even to the point where the original NieR got remastered in Replicant. Very interesting, with the original being Gestalt. And it's really interesting to see the community around this game evolve because, one, I feel they're kind of deprived of Papa NieR from Gestalt, and also kind of figuring out the crazy world of Yoko Taro. I'm kind of glad at least people are able to play the first game, in some capacity rather than just the 360 version. I know I kind of prefer Papa NieR, but nothing is perfect. But yes, NieR Automata. I remember when this game was first revealed, it was only an artwork trailer at E3 2016 or 15 or something, and I went absolutely ballistic because I thought there's no way this is coming back. And it's funny, at the time, I did think that the girl depicted in the picture was actually Yona grown up, but in fact, it is the very famous now 2B character. So, NieR Automata, I guess I have a few lore gripes that I could get into, but of course that's only something that a true fan would get into. The first thing is that this game takes place like 9,000 years after the last one. I think the first game was in 4,080, while this one is in 12,080. So that's about 8,000 years later, and it doesn't really feel like it needs to be that far in the future, but that's what they decided in any case. But yes, NieR Automata. What can I say about this game? Well, first off, let's talk about the combat, since that's the most basic thing. This is by Platinum Games. They are the creators of, Metal Gear Rising, an extremely popular game from the Metal Gear Solid series. It's interesting how, Metal Gear is not known for this kind of gameplay, and neither is NieR technically, and Platinum kind of took these great franchises and gave them that ability to create this very cool action component to their franchise. So you play as 2B, 9S, and A2 throughout the 3 different campaigns, of which you will use a combination of light attacks, heavy attacks, evasions, dodges, counters, usually swords. You have a combination of, in 2B's case, a main weapon and a sub weapon. You can have either combination. You can have 2 long swords, 2 short swords, 2 fist weapons, or 2 spears, and depending on how you outfit 2B, she will have a completely different attack style and pattern depending on what combination of weapons you have equipped. 2B is a battle unit, while 9S is a scanner unit. So 9S only holds 1 weapon, but his secondary attack is a hacking method that allows you to enter into this little mini game that you shoot these little kind of blobs on the screen, and all the music in the world goes 8-bit, and you essentially on a successful hack, you basically almost self-destruct the enemy and take away all their health and do massive damage to them. I personally prefer 2B's moveset simply because, you actually get to, be physically there. And I feel like going into the hacking mode a little bit breaks up the immersion or the pacing of the battle, I feel. But it's incredibly useful, so you are going to use it. Aside from that, A2 has some special abilities. So while 2B can do things like self-destruct, which makes a huge shockwave and defeats enemies, it's not very useful because you'll stumble afterwards and then have to essentially recover, and a lot of your health will be gone. It will also remove her skirt, which has become the iconic look for some, 2B art and her character. For 9S, his shorts will come off, and for A2, when she taunts, she actually goes into a berserk mode, and that's her special ability. So she's able to kind of go into this crazy mode where she does way more damage, but it drains her health at a super fast pace. And honestly, I didn't really use it till the end of the game, until I realized there was actually an achievement for it. I just felt it was too dangerous to use, but yeah, that's just my bad. So I don't really want to cover the story too much, simply because the less you know, the more interesting it is. As with all these games, I can say it's something in the same vein as the original NieR game. I find it fascinating that they've been able to incorporate a lot of the same kind of themes and be kind of consistent between these two games, despite the huge time gap, which seems again completely unreasonable to me, but that's what they went with. Something being 1,000 or 2,000 years later might have been, even acceptable. 8,000 years, you're just kind of getting crazy. That there's even remnants of the old characters in this game, of which there are, and there's just crazy reasons for that, because Yoko Taro games are insane wild rides, and that's honestly why we love the NieR series, is because of the story and the craziness that it involves. NieR is definitely one of those games where you have a lot of very deep emotional storytelling and character development, coupled with just generally bizarre and strange scenarios. What has happened in this case, it's been thousands of years since the last Gestalt incident. Humanity is kind of in a bind at this point, where machines, specifically machines sent by alien life forms to invade Earth, have invaded, and they basically conquered the entire Earth. And it's really hard to say anything that's not spoilers. But I'm sure if you know about NieR Automata and you've been even slightly curious, I'm sure you've played it by this point. But even so, I'm going to try to keep it to a minimum. It's really fascinating what they did. The whole story in this game is just insane, as it should be. And there's even some things and some details I think some people might have brushed over that maybe I might talk about right now. So there's this whole thing where Emil's in this game. Some people want to argue that A2 has Kanye's data or something, which, I think it's just a common character design that Yoko Taro likes. But, I think there is a little thing about just the last, one of the last pieces of documents you get, or data, is about the original Gestalt project and how it ended and how N2's consciousness came about. And this is, I think the document is called Jackass's Analysis of the Network. And you need to read that document very carefully, because there's a lot of jargon in all these documents, and apparently Yoko Taro was inspired by the 9/11 briefings for the original NieR in some capacity, and how just they were handled and released. And of course, everything's a conspiracy and lied to you. But when you read Jackass's analysis of the machine network, it kind of reveals that there are elements of the original Gestalt that were incorporated into the consciousness of N2 before she became a conscious being. And I really want you to think about what that implies, i.e., what does the N in N2 actually stand for? And I think I might do a separate video on this entirely, because it's a very interesting concept that I think is not really laid out implicitly, or rather explicitly, and could be really fleshed out and compounded and really explained in a very interesting interpretation. But I'm going to leave it there for now, and that'll be another video. Something I also really love about Automata's design is the menu system. Everything is hyper minimal. It makes sense. This is a super, technologically advanced, Android thing, where they're a pseudo-military or fully military organization. Everything is done in symbols. I love how the fact that everything from healing items to offensive items, everything has a simplified symbol and design to it. All the menus are gray and beige and kind of feel like they are part of this weird, futuristic, but also incredibly sterile, conformist organization that is, trying to be appropriate and official, and also trying to hide the truth underneath all of their lies. I think the one thing I really need to bring to attention, which I find incredibly funny, besides the fact that if you haven't played the first NieR, you will not appreciate a lot of references to certain characters and homages and other kind of musical motifs. And of course, the music in this game is incredible. It's as good, if not better, than the original NieR, and I love the original NieR for its music initially. It's how I was introduced to it, because a friend of mine actually showed me the music to NieR, and I actually told them, oh, I actually own that game because I heard it was good, but I haven't actually played it yet. And they said you should probably do that. And sure enough, I played it and it became my immediate favorite. It was just immediate. It was amazing how fast I immediately fell in love with original NieR. And NieR Automata is not really an exception to that. I am so pleasantly surprised this wasn't a cash grab or some kind of crappy, off-tone game where it was completely different from the original. It feels very much in line and very much in the same spirit of the original, and I'm so blessed and overjoyed for that being the case, rather than this being something that it's not. That being said, though, I think if I had to choose between these two, I would only choose the original slightly, simply because of the character Vice. He is just one of my all-time favorite characters in gaming, and that kind of character does not exist in this game. You have the cold, blunt woman, you have, the small, conscientious boy, but you don't have the arrogant, puffy, useless aristocratic book to make fun of and boss around. And I think some of the music in the original is just a lot more. No, it's so hard to say. I love both these games. These are so cherished to my heart. But Vice, just simply because Vice is the original, I guess he gets. If I had to choose between them, I would choose that one. I think some other things that are very funny about this game to people who haven't played it, 2B has kind of been seen as some sort of, I guess, icon, in the whole, sort of eroge world, or, kind of, that kind of thing. I think what's very funny is that when people play this game, they kind of realize along the line that this is not just a sexual character, that there's a real big freaking story hidden behind this thing that's incredibly creative. And not only that, but 2B really is not the main character, and I find that very funny that people think that she is, or have that impression, when if you really play it, it's not even like close. A little bit. You start off as 2B, but by the end of the game you realize that the main struggle and the main kind of character development is not with 2B. She is literally just kind of like an archetype to entice the player to like join up, but then the real story that is very tragic and very interesting really begins. Speaking on that point, there are technically 28 or 26, I forget how many letters are in the alphabet, different endings to this game, with only about 5 of them being major endings, all the other ones being joke endings, which are very funny, involving things like, the commander gives you a direct order and you just immediately disobey it, and and the game just ends, and it brings you back to the main menu. You have to load your last save as a punishment. Probably my favorite joke ending is the one where you blow up or self-destruct on the bunker. So it talks about how the commander is basically floating through space with a stern look on her face. That was definitely the funniest ending I got. There's also, of course, the famous mackerel ending. And all these other things where, you like kill, important NPCs, or you leave objectives, and a lot of that stuff just is for, kind of random things, for fun players who like to explore and mess around and kind of do the bad things in the game. But the 5 main endings of the game, each one has a different kind of implication. It's really funny that I feel it's a I mean, I could probably look this up right now, but how many people have only beaten ending A? Because at the end of ending A, you know, a Yoko Taro's design philosophy has always been to play the game multiple times and in different ways, and a lot of people just don't do that. I think they follow a pretty basic credit rule. Essentially, once you see the credits to a game or a movie, you're like, okay, that's it. It's over. There's no extra little scene. There might be like an extra little scene, but a lot of people kind of want to move on, and that's very understandable. However, the Yoko Taro games, even though you are replaying the game, especially in this context, when you are replaying, it is a lot different. And in fact, they give you that message at the end of the credits because the developers know that a lot of players will do that. And I think it's funny that there are people who have played Automata, but they have not really played Automata because they don't know what happens to 2B. They don't know what happens to the machines. They don't know the real story because it's really the ending A is only an appetizer for what this game really offers. And for people who stuck with it, or people who know Yoko Taro, they definitely stuck with it and they know. That being said, I find Route B to be kind of a little bit boring, especially in the beginning, because you're basically doing the same events just as 9S with the hacking ability, which adds a fun little extra component, but it's not that great. It's actually until you beat Route B that you get Route C. And in Route C, the game story completely changes, and that's the real second half of the game, where you play as a combination of A2 and 9S, in which the game takes just like a really freaking dark turn. It's almost like all the weird kind of messed up, silly stuff in the first half gives way to all the really effed up things that we're used to seeing from Mr. Taro in the second half. And of course, it follows the same sort of storytelling mechanic where, the bad guys were humanized in the second playthrough, and they're not actually just bad guys, but they're, self-sufficient beings, similar to the shades in Route B of NieR. Again, in the original NieR, you really got a very small margin of new content, but here you're getting a lot more, and it really is designed for you to play it multiple times. Because it is always different, and then once you've beat it around to Route C, you can then go back in time and redo all the side quests you miss, which was a huge frustrating thing, that you could get to the end of NieR, and all the side quests of the first half of the game you could never accomplish, and when the game restarted, it started you from the half point, so it was just like infinitely cursed. Always, and that frustrated a lot of people. In this game, though, they've completely remedied that, and it's much easier to just literally go back in time, load a chapter, and be able to engage with the game. But yeah, those are kind of all the main endings. Ending D is a variation on ending C, which is really interesting because, ever since Drakengard, which had multiple endings, they haven't really done something similar to that, where they'd have 5 different endings, maybe 1 or 2 at most. But here they've brought that back, where endings C and D, they're very similar in how they end, but there's one little piece of nuance, and I think there's actually even like another ending within ending D that doesn't count as an extra ending, but the nuance of your final choice in that ending does change the final outcome of ending D, but it's not a new ending. Ending E, however, is technically the final real ending and the final ending to this game, and it's very, very interesting and very meta, where essentially you have to fight. It's one of the coolest things I've seen, where the hacking mini game turns into fighting the actual credits of the actual game designers. If you don't want the game to end the way it does in ending C and D, you can actually fight fate and essentially attack the credits in this huge mini game. And they do this really interesting creative thing where you're basically outnumbered, and you can't basically take down the system by yourself, and you need other people's help. And so I don't know how this is going to work in the future, but using the PSN and the internet, you can get other players' data from around the globe, and these players essentially come in and help you and give you extra firepower and help you basically stop the game from ending the way it does in tragedy and trying to save it. And I found that it's one of the most impactful endings I've ever played. I mean, I love the story of NieR, the original, but in Automata, that kind of extra meta context is just way more interesting and very, very cool. And of course, by the end of the game, it'll ask you if you want to erase all of your save data so that you can get another person, so that you can send your save data out as another person to go help other people. And it's so interesting because, again, Yoko Taro has dealt with this a lot. What if a game is just deleted? What if it never existed? What if your experiences and your memories that make you who you are go away? Will you give all that up? And it's such a weird, interesting, metaphorical, spiritual, interesting thing. This is a game that really makes you think. Yes, the game with the girl that everyone's worshiping for her butt actually has a lot of thinking going on for it. Speaking of which, I think my favorite side quest in this entire game was the Wise Machine. That was an absolutely brutal quest to go through, because it's this machine who understands the complexities of existence, and he's contemplating it, and he is an absolutist in a sense, and he's trying to think through why he exists, and he comes to this incredibly nihilist conclusion that there is no reason and that he is unloved, and even though he is wise, he essentially kills himself. And it's this just insane thing. And a lot of NieR, I think, deals with existentialism and more so nihilism in this one. And it's interesting because that sort of idea is reflected in the names given to the machines of the aliens that have taken over Earth. They usually are characters or philosophers who were Enlightenment philosophers who dealt with the nature of existence. Some of them were Christians, some of them were atheists. The main one that is on the front cover of the game is, even called Marx, and his compatriot is called Engels. There's one after Hegel, Kierkegaard, Kant, and Pascal. And Pascal is the only one who is a pacifist, and it's funny because Pascal was a Christian mathematician who saw God and meaning in everything, while the machines that go out and try to kill, you and your teammates are the ones who were essentially the philosophers who found meaninglessness in existence. I feel, because this game actually honestly led me to go and read some of those philosophers. And it's interesting how, it's a nice thing to incorporate into your game, but I can't not admit that at the same component, it's kind of a very surface level, interpretation of their philosophies into the naming of these machines. It's not like the machines have these philosophies and incorporate them into their move sets or something. It's very much kind of just name dropping and the general context about what is meaning and what is existence. I guess speaking on the designs, it's very interesting that, I really don't like the machine designs because they're very simple and round and very, the same-ish. And, there's this whole section where you're playing as 9S and you can actually control a lot of the machines. And that would be really cool if they didn't all kind of feel the same or work the same way. It feels kind of lame, but I can't really complain about it because there's actually a genuinely fascinating lore reason for why they do all look the same and have the same kind of design. And oh man, I can't say it. It's so good. Can I recommend this game to someone who hasn't played the original? I absolutely can, but I really heavily encourage someone to play Replicant or even better Gestalt before playing this one. And even if you don't appreciate it, you at least should listen to the OST because it is one of the best OSTs I've ever heard. Just hype music, just amazing orchestral, things and compositions. They feel amazing and epic, and this game is epic, and I haven't felt that for a long time, and also very, very interesting. Also, I love the designs of the Yorha units, not just 2B herself. I mean, I think a lot of people have commented just not on her body design, but on her outfit design. It's something very interesting, very stylish. This has this whole black and white design, and I love the other designs of the other Yorha units. It's funny how the blindfold technically in game is a visor that helps them see, and it's symbolic of the fact that they're actually blindly taking orders, and it's kind of like heavy-handed symbolism, but it's fine. It's whatever. I'm not gonna kill myself over it. But I love the black and white designs for the scanner units, the other units that have appeared in alternate media like Final Fantasy XIV DLC, including NieR Automata. which again is again another reason I actually started considering playing FF14 is because this DLC for NieR was planned in this game, and I thought, well, I don't play MMOs, but I'll play it for NieR. And of course, with Yoko Taro, he says that everything is canon and everything needs to be incorporated, including stage plays and little audio recordings and little cassette things and audio tapes and all this very stupid stuff. But I love that. I don't think anyone can fully know everything about NieR, or at least there's one person out there. They, Godspeed to them, but it is kind of a lore of different kinds of varying quality of stories. Even NieR Reincarnation, which I don't really care for, is a mobile game, so you need to pay to get all the story from that, and so all this weird gatekeeping and crossovers of 2B showing up as a character and everything from Soul Calibur 6 to gacha games like NieR, and all the rest of it is just it's insane. I appreciate the chaos and the fact that 2B has become this character that has been kind of iconic of Square Enix and the success of the NieR series. And I never thought in a million years that the sequel to one of the most esoteric, weird, and underappreciated niche games would be a huge blockbuster game where everyone's lusting after their main character. And it's hugely successful, and now she's everywhere. I never thought, I would have never, ever thought. Just on 2B herself, something I really appreciated about her as a character is how smooth her animations were. I've talked about this in a few other games, but it reminds me almost of Ocarina of Time, where when Link sort of has an idle animation and he moves his sword around, and when it feels like they're moving at a higher FPS than the world around them, it's a really good feeling. And I just would be mesmerized by just the way 2B would have a cancel animation, how she twirl her sword, not just the way she moves and the fact you can look up her skirt and she does the push away design and the little taunt and you get an achievement for that, but just her character. So much love and attention has been poured into making her feel like a real character that actually moves and is living and breathing in this world. And it's just an interesting concept. And I love, just 2B as a model, as a character. The fact that they try to create this thing that is more real than reality, if that's something to say. On that, I also love the design of the flight units. They are super, super cool. The fact that the body just kind of straps in and it goes and launches and flies. And, it's only used during story missions and has all this cool different tech and the way you can dodge and everything. I love the dodging in this game as well. The fact that you can, basically get you feel like a frame second perfect dodge, and you are able to, outmaneuver the enemy. I don't know. It's just everything in this game is very well designed, very well made, and it feels just really, really good. I think I should also bring up, there's also the NieR anime, in terms of its other kind of content. They kind of, and I guess, so the NieR anime is really just a recap of the game. It's really, really not worth it. I really don't care for it. But I can imagine why they wanted to make it so badly, even years after the game came out, simply because, Taro himself said that really this game is very much inspired by Neon Genesis Evangelion. And it's funny because at first I didn't see it, but as soon as he said that, I really did see the point. You have 9S as kind of your Shinji-esque character who's kind of always in trouble, always uncertain of his role in the universe, always kind of being abused in some weird way, and kind of figuring out this conspiracy and delving into the essence of who he is and what reality is as well. Again, my only lore complaints really that I was going to get to is the fact this is 12,000 AD and androids are still finding these giant Goliath class monster machines with a short sword. There's just things that just don't make sense. The fact that the city still has, 20th century, it's been, 20th century architecture. They have some in-game reason that the androids rebuilt it, or rather an in-anime reason that they kind of use to explain the lore. But honestly, it makes more sense the machines that replicate and adapt, human culture to their own programming would do that instead. I find that the best thing about the anime were those little skits at the end of each episode where you had 2B and 9S as these little puppets, and they'd explain certain lore things about the game, and they tried to, fix a lot of things that the people had questions about. And again, some of them they answered really well. Some of the things like, oh yeah, I forgot about that, and some of the things just really were not explained well at all. But they were very funny and very charming. On the NieR DLC in Final Fantasy XIV, since I also played that, I'm not really sure what to say about it because it was incredibly esoteric and all over the place, and you really need to sit down and as you play it, you're kind of thrown into these environments, and it seems like a portal's open up from other, Yorha universe, and it feels very much just an excuse to have all this cool stuff happen without really explain it. But the lore implications of the 14 DLC at this point, I don't think they're very impactful to the rest of the game. They incorporate a lot of things from Drakengard 3 and NieR, so I find that to be super, super interesting, but nothing super how would I say, impactful for the future of the series. I'm not going to think back to that DLC and be like, oh right, because this happened, now this has to happen. No, they just incorporate a lot of stuff and say, okay, what would happen if they were in the Final Fantasy XIV universe? That's pretty much the extent of what they were exploring, and had an excuse for a lot of really cool artistic stuff to take place. And hey, more power to them. Again, I'm almost on the edge of calling this game a masterpiece. I'm sure a lot of modern gamers do because they don't have taste of the old classics that came before this, but it's still a very, very, very good game. Even if you're not familiar with the original NieR game, I would still support you in playing this. But if you want to get the full extra appreciation, NieR Replicant, or even better, NieR Gestalt also are extremely good starting points of the series. And beyond that, I think a lot of people, because of NieR, and especially myself, got in the Drakengard series because of this. And it's funny because I remember I picked up Drakengard 3 after NieR because I thought that was the next big thing, and that kind of took me on a weird route where I wanted to learn more about Drakengard. I tried watching lore videos and studies and the cutscenes, and I just got way more confused, and I said, okay, screw it, I will just buy the original Drakengard and Drakengard 2 on PS2, and it is the best decision I ever made because those games just need to be experienced. Imagine trying to explain NieR to someone, or do a video essay on it, or a lore analysis breakdown. There is just too much stuff and too much the tone of everything. You lose the tone and the essence of everything when you just explain it. As awful as Drakengard is, and it's really only the first level that is the worst, you just need to experience it. And I wish there was some way to distill it, but we're talking about one of the most interesting convoluted stories in gaming history, besides Metal Gear Solid and I really don't know, actually. But this rivals Metal Gear Solid in its complexity and its themes and its messaging, and it's just very, very good stuff. Anyway, there's I've been talking about this game nonstop for the past half hour, but it's really amazing what they were able to accomplish. The story, the characters, the writing, the combat, the design, everything. It's not perfect by any means, but it's still so solid and so innovative that I can't help but fall in love with it, and I hope everyone else does too. Just really quickly, did you ever notice that the Yorha symbol is actually supposed to be a closed eye and the eyelashes around it? And the operators all wear face masks because they're the ones that are talking, and the soldiers all wear, blindfolds because they're the ones supposed to be seeing what they're doing. And oh my god, all the symbolism, you know how it is. But yeah, this game, I find it very hilarious that it's filtered probably a lot of people because I think it's just a game with a sexy main character, or a game that it only has ending A, and there's just this game about killing robots, and they just missed out on all of the deep existential things and the huge emotional ending of ending E. I cannot recommend this game enough. It is a amazing miracle it even exists. I don't even know, I'm not even prepared for the next NieR game, if it'll be as good or better than this, but I really hope that when it comes out, it will be just an insane ride. Lots of really cool meta things. I I don't have much else to say about it. It's an amazing game. I love it, and I hope everyone gets to try it someday. Anyway, with that all being said, oh, the one thing I should mention, okay, one thing I'm going to mention though before I go is the DLC. The DLC for the past NieR game and the DLC for this game suck. They just flat out suck. They just add like an extra tournament, like these fighting areas. And it was really interesting, but for people who are playing the complete edition who don't have the DLC, there's these 3 doors in the world. And I always thought, well, at the second half of the game and ending or Route C, you have these 3 lights appear, and I thought, oh, that's going to be the 3 extra dungeons that are the 3 parts of the world. And it's like, no, not at all. They're much shorter than that, and they're not even that at all. And the 3 doors in the world are just DLC tournaments where you go and fight as robots with 9S or as 2B or it's the time limit or whatever, and you just do that for extra cosmetics to change 2B's hair or give 9S a different costume or 2B a different costume. And it's so underwhelming and lackluster. And then at the end of the DLC, you fight like Yosuke Saito or like the CEOs of Square Enix, and they're fully like 3D, facially IRL accurate personas. And it is a very jarring, weird experience that we did not need to have. So they don't really add much, but they don't really detract anything because they're completely ignorable as well. They're just like, hey, here's extra stuff to do, I guess. But yeah, NieR, they just have not been able to do good DLC. And it was the same thing in the original game. You just had more like waves of enemies to fight with like techno-ish versions of the same song. So whatever. I'm an avid e-drug user, by the way. I absolutely love all the different effects you get and how you can make the game play in 8-bit and you're not in hacking mode. There's so many cool little things about this game, so much lore, so much like energy and so much creative energy from it that has inspired other things, like even recently the game Stellar Blade, which is a completely new game made by a Korean team that even Yoko Taro said he's jealous of, and I'm so overjoyed and skeptical about it because I'm so glad that NieR has inspired so many people that it's made like a rival game, but I just hope it's different enough to actually be its own thing. But I still have to play it since it literally just came out. Anyway, guys, that is all I'm going to say for this one. I'm out of breath and I'm out of ideas though, and I will leave you to play this amazing gem. All right, see you later. Bye.